Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges, and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Michael Dolst, CEO and co-founder of Super League Triathlon, the world's premier swim, bike, run series, pitching the very best athletes against each other in quick and exciting race formats in fantastic destinations across the globe. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Jenn. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for joining Curito Connects today, connecting from Canada as we speak.
Cool.
Michael and I have been friends for a decade now, right? Come 2020, come next month. And we first met in Taipei via mutual friend Tanya Lee Parker. Shout out to Tanya there, who's sitting in Singapore. If I remember correctly, we first met over lunch at TGIF out in Nehu in Myanmar. I'm kind of throwing you down memory lane here since you've left Taiwan.
You do.
The mutual connection was over planning events, sports, and Taiwan's potential to become a popular destination for triathlon racing in Asia. So all this was true since I continued to plan my small, intimate events while Michael brought in Challenge, the other well-known triathlon race after Ironman, to Taiwan. And fast forward a decade later, I would argue, and I'm pretty sure the triathlon scene here in Taiwan would probably also coin you, Michael, that you left a mark here amongst the triathlon community, passing the baton to Jovi Lo, who runs Waypoint here in Taiwan and has since grown the triathlon marketplace in Taiwan. So Michael has then continued to take his entrepreneurial spirit to continue to pave way for the triathlon industry by creating Super League in, was it 2016 or when did you start this?
Well, we did our first event in 2017. So we've
17.
obviously thought about it before, but let's say
Right.
2017 was the first event. That's the official start.
Okay, so 2017. So I wasn't too far. Well, I'm thrilled to have you and to be able to catch up with you this holiday season. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've kind of had face to face conversation, and now you have 3 kids as well. So for you to share your own personal challenge and impactful moments that shape who you are today and the work you do. And there's so many things we could dive into. So I think I'm just going to let you start, take us on your journey, Michael.
Well, I mean, it was a very good time in Taiwan, and I think Taiwan was really where my life changed and where sports became more important. But it's a passion that the passion for triathlon the passion for sports is, I always loved sport as a child, right? But the passion for triathlon came through an inspiration of Luc Van Lierde, who was the first non-American who won Ironman Hawaii. And Ironman Hawaii is obviously the holy grail of triathlon racing. And that was in 1996. So when in 1996 Luc Van Lierde won Ironman Hawaii, everybody in Belgium picked up triathlon and thought this is the new sport we're good at, right? I mean, Belgium, okay, we're pretty good at soccer, but historically it's always been cycling. Eddie Merckx, cycling, right? And then suddenly there was a second endurance sport, triathlon, that we appear to be good at. And since I argue since 1996, triathlon has been fairly big in Belgium. So I mean, I was one of the many, with 10 million in Belgium, right? So, but many that picked it up. But then obviously university came and work came, etc., and yeah, that became the focus, right? And work wise, I was working for Volkswagen Group, and Volkswagen Group, out of its headquarters in Germany, Wolfsburg, they sent me to China. So I did 10 years in China, and then after 10 years in China, I opted to take a sabbatical. And in that sabbatical, I said, well, I want continue to learn a little bit of Chinese, but I want to do it in a healthier environment than mainland China. Let's go to Taiwan, right? Never been to Taiwan, but I hear it's great for outdoor lifestyle, right? So uh, moved to Taiwan, registered at Shida University to do some Chinese, and said, okay, I want to pick up triathlon again, right? Because that's a sport that the last sport I did before working too much, right? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Triathlon, I Taiwan was really the beginning of my triathlon journey. Although I mean, yeah, it was purposely the beginning of learning more Chinese. Although that kind of sidetracked a little bit.
Well, you still
Uh,
remember the name of the school you went to, and you could pronounce it quite perfectly. So I think your Chinese hasn't gone, hasn't you haven't lost it too much yet.
you're very nice to me. Thank you. I'm not sure about that, but I mean, yeah, Taiwan was. I thought Taiwan was for me really a fantastic experience. I mean, I went to Taiwan, and the idea was to stay 1 year and then go back to Volkswagen because I was the career move was to take a sabbatical, then go back to Europe, make go up and see where the path at Volkswagen brought me, right? But yeah, picked up triathlon, set myself a personal goal that while studying, let's try to qualify for Ironman Hawaii also as an age grouper. And I actually did my first full distance Ironman in Wanaka, so in New Zealand, and it was Challenge Wanaka, and that's interesting because at Challenge Wanaka I met Felix Walschhofer, who is the son of the founder of Challenge Roth, right? And ultimately, Challenge Roth is the centerpiece of of the challenge family as such, right? And run into Felix, we had a bit of a conversation, and Felix was well, it was interesting to grow challenge family. And at the time, there was maybe 4 events worldwide, so it was still a fairly small operation. And I think they had 2 or 3 in Germany, and then one in Wanaka. So it was very kind of uh, coincidental everything. And I said, well, yeah, there's a bit of an opportunity to grow the brand in Asia now, right? Because I mean, Ironman was just going through a little bit of a dip where they lost a couple of big races around Asia, and they were still trying to manage everything out of North America. And I said, well, Felix, why don't you give me the rights to do this, right? Um, and I partnered up. I worked closely together with a guy who did it in the Philippines, a guy who did it in Thailand, and I was doing Taiwan, and had the rights to Greater China as such, right? And yeah, and so instead of just racing, I started organizing a little bit, and I think that's yeah, and I loved it, right? I mean, it's ultimately the inspiration that arguably what inspired me back in 1996 to pick up sports and to do something, right? I think yeah, I wanted to do the same thing through events, bring the sports closer to the people ultimately. Yeah, and Taiwan is just such a beautiful country with a great community who really collects behind sports, right, or behind activity as such, right, and then jump on it, and yeah, through the community it becomes a big thing, right. So I think that's been a very very yeah interesting. It's basically the let's say the birth growth of my journey in triathlon as such, and
Right.
um, yeah,
So, okay, I feel like you just kind of like went down memory lane just now, but I kind of want to go back a little bit and ask. So, when you were in China for Volkswagen and you decided to take your sabbatical, and I guess
yeah,
you had initially thought you were going to go back to China, right? It was just kind of like I'm going to come and play and kind of visit Taiwan and travel, learn Chinese, and then head back to take that career track that you kind of paved out for, right?
yeah.
When you made that pivotal, move or like that decision to say, I'm not going back. Like I enjoyed my sabbatical so much. I picked up triathlon. I see this whole other trajectory for myself. Was that hard for you to make that decision to be like, okay, no more corporate. I'm going to tell my family that like I'm still in Asia. I'm not coming back to, I'm not coming back to Belgium because you're very close with your family too, right? And to kind of not do the traditional, as we, we all kind of say, like, you study
Yeah.
and, you have like a proper career track, You were kind of doing the unconventional route, let alone a very entrepreneurial route in a country that you barely speak the language, right? Don't know the ropes. Like, how do you get the fundings? How do you get things done? How do you execute? How do you get the
But
right
I think
people, right?
you don't know, right? I mean, there's no such thing as I don't believe there is such a thing as okay. I mean, that you imagine what will happen 3 years down the road, right? There is no such thing. I mean, ultimately, there is a there's a commitment and I mean the only thing I knew was okay, I am ultimately resilient, right? I mean, does this lead to success? Yes or no? You don't know that, right? I mean, there's no guarantees in life. The only thing I say, well, when if it doesn't work, I'll go back, right? And I'm okay with that, right? And I'll take a punt for it, but that's okay, right? So if you don't try, you will never win, right?
So that was the mindset you went into.
Well, yes, and ultimately, I remember calling my parents, and I said, well, I'm thinking of not going back to Volkswagen. Actually, my father jumped in the plane, flew to Taiwan because and thought I was crazy, right? And he came a week, and I think 5 days we argued, and the last two he took peace with the fact that I was not going back to Volkswagen, and then we had 2 good days, right? And then afterwards he said it jokingly. He says like, yeah. Okay, this was a horrible trip, except the last 2 days when I took peace with the fact that you're not going back to Volkswagen. It was semi enjoyable, right? But and still to this day, he sometimes asks me, "Don't you regret your choice?" You know, no, but yeah, yeah,
He still asks you to this day that question. Do you regret your choice?
yeah. I mean, I think he asked me even this year. He asked me that, right? But yeah, it's because obviously he comes from a different generation, and he like you indicate, right? He has that more traditional mindset of working for a big company, and I was regarded as doing well in the company, right? So yeah, that's the best bet for being successful, right? And an entrepreneur that runs a startup business, that's a concept that is quite alien to him.
So do you think that he is he not does he not see your success in what you're doing? Like, is that why you think he still asks you that question?
No, no, I don't. I think he definitely sees the success, and he definitely, yeah, is proud of that, right? Uh, but yeah, it's still a very alien concept to him. Right? So I mean, I don't think it's a negative. It's just what it is. It is. I mean, he still thinks, oh yeah. I mean, you've given up something that was great. There must be an element of regret to that, right? Yeah, it is what it is.
So yeah, it is what it is. So did when you decided to leave Volkswagen, I remember correctly, and I can't remember the timeline, but in between your time in Taiwan, you did end up also going back to work corporate for a little small stint, right?
Yes.
Was that correct? And what was that storyline of why you were I guess you can kind of illustrate this for us a little bit, that you stayed in Taiwan, you were racing, you're probably the fittest at the time. Not to say that you're not fit now. I think most people through COVID had, there's anyway, that's a whole other story. But and then you kind of went off for, was it like a year or so to try to do a corporate again, and then kind of really
Yeah.
threw in the towel and said, no, I'm going all in on triathlon.
That's pretty much it. Pretty much it, right? I mean, yeah, there was another corporate I an opportunity that I came across, and through people that I know, um, actually arguably a great opportunity, right? And indeed, I thought, okay, maybe I need to explore this, but it was not even a year; it was 6 months, and after 6 months, it was like, okay, this is not where my passions sit, right? And I like actually my boss at the time, I mean, he was also a friend, right, or and a family friend, right. It was quite clear that like, okay, this is not where my passions sit, right. And after 6 months, I said, look, guys, this is not going to really work, right. And then indeed circled back and yeah, came back to Taiwan basically, and started to think more about racing and doing more. And actually, that also then coincides a little bit with what triggered a little bit of the next step, right? Because I mean, doing Challenge Taiwan, and at the time, Chris McCormack, Macca, a four-time world champion, he was looking at retiring, and he became a brand ambassador for Challenge Family, right? So and I just thought, okay, if I want to make Challenge big in Taiwan, right, I need to bring Macca, right, because he's the biggest name in the sport, right, and it makes relevance, and it suited him coincidentally, right, because it suited him because he was living in the United States and was trying to get back to Australia, right, and didn't mind stopping over in Asia because there was some other opportunities, right, and actually so he raced Challenge Taiwan, and we just hung out for a little bit, and we also did an event in the Philippines, Challenge Philippines. Um, I don't think the event continued, but and at that event there was Sheikh Nasser, the Prince of Bahrain, who raced that event, and so obviously
Mm.
Mecca being very engaging, right, and charismatic, started talking to Sheikh Nasser, and then we started having these conversations, and we created a plan for Bahrain Endurance 13. So that was then the next triathlon venture where we did a team for Sheikh Nasser, and that actually all uh, these first conversations happened, yeah, after Mara came to Taiwan, then traveled to the Philippines for the second event, Challenge Philippines, and we ran into Sheikh Nasser there, and then actually Sheikh Nasser for in year one did Challenge Bahrain, right? So and yeah, and to date I'm still involved with the Bahrain Endurance 13 team, right? So that's kind of what yeah, going back to corporate, finding out it's not, then kind of coincidentally come across like the same way I travel to New Zealand to do a race, meet Felix there, and now okay, through bring Macadam, we jumped in and coincidentally met the Prince of Bahrain, and that time kind of reinforced this whole journey in triathlon, because now yeah, that was another opportunity there, right? Yeah,
It almost sounds like kind of going back to what you said earlier with really going with the flow. So you
yeah,
kind of knew your core was, your passion for the sport and what you wanted to share with more the sport. And then kind of as you were going, you pick up these different connections and these different leads that take you to the
yeah,
next thing. So I think that's really cool that now when you look back, you can like pull, like thread it all together, kind of like
yeah,
align the stars. But when you go back to and I just want to talk a little bit about your time in Taiwan. So when you were setting all this up, and I kind of recall the numerous meetings you would always go to, or like the conversations we would have about the different obstacles you're trying to overcome, right? In terms of like
yeah,
getting funding or getting sponsors, and really trying to when you're working with a concept in a foreign country, like I mentioned earlier, again, it's like trying to, adapt to cultural differences, right? And like, how do you teach volunteers to, line up on the streets to cheer for the athletes and make sure they're there, and, all this and that, and work with the government officials and the police and whatnot. So just, if you could just share with us a little bit about that process for you, and I know you're always so positive and you're always just like, you just do it. Like, how else are you going to make things happen? But, I think a lot of times, especially for people who are listening to the podcast, or to this episode or other episode, it's kind of like, again, that inspiring story, or just kind of
yeah,
how and there, I mean, for anyone who wants to do something entrepreneurial, there's always going to be a fear factor, right? Like, oh, if this is
yeah,
going to fail, like, what are people going to think about me? How do you balance your ego? How do you build your character? So for you, if you think back during that time, because like you said, that was a very prime time for you to really begin this journey. This is, Taiwan was kind of where it really helped you learn the ropes, right? Meet the people, get the connections, kind of like a
yeah.
little platform for you to start, and now you're
But
totally gone global, right? So yeah, I was just curious if you could share with us a little bit about that part.
But I think I think the most important thing is to do it step by step and to surround yourself with people, right? So I mean, indeed, I'd never organized an event before, definitely not in a foreign country, right? So, but okay, you surround yourself with people, you work with people who've done it before, and you do the little things, and you fine tune the little things that I knew, right? Because I mean, I worked with a team that had organized events before in Taiwan, that was very competent, that knew how to do it locally. I myself had raced many international races, so I think just saying, okay, what working with surrounding myself with people who are specialists locally, and then I can bring in what I've seen internationally to kind of create a different experience, a new experience, right? And well, Challenge Family is an international brand, so you need that international flavor to it, right? And then again, so picking that up, but doing it, it's just breaking it down and doing little steps, right? For example, I talked to my brother who also wants to be more entrepreneurial, but he thinks, okay, I'm going from here and I'm going to have a full fledged business. I mean, it's not going to work like that, right? I mean, you need to. It's all little steps, and I believe, yeah, you need to always set yourself up in an environment where you surround yourself with people who are maybe just one or two steps ahead, or maybe three steps ahead of you, right? And it pulls you in, right? I mean, there's so many quotes who say it, but it's actually very true. If you surround yourself with bankers, you'll become a banker. If you surround yourself with successful people, you'll become successful. You'll become successful, right? If you surround yourself with alcoholics, you'll become an alcoholic. It's quite straightforward, right? But it is a little bit of that, and yeah, I mean, I surrounded myself in Taiwan with people who knew the event industry. I worked with them, who had experience, and I brought my vision and my ideas to it, and collaboratively we delivered things, right? And I think that's important. And then yeah, and then the fear of not taking of the don't have fear to take a step, right? Because one could argue for me and nobody in Taiwan trying to do one single small event at the end of the world, so to say, or to call Chris McCormack, who was a four-time world champion in America, and say, "Hey, come and race here." Yeah, many people. I mean, people will say, "He will never come. Don't do it. Don't even try it. You don't have to do it, right?" But yeah, so why not? Just do it. Just kind of do it. And if he says no, then call the next one, right? And if he says no, then call the next one. There's no failure is not. There's no such thing as failure, right? It's just you have to do it again, right? If you give up after one time, imagine if you're a baby and you start walking, and the first time you fall, you stop ever trying to walk again. Well, it's not going to be great, right? So
Right.
yeah,
And so,
it's a combination of these three things, I would say.
yeah. Okay, I mean, I would agree, but I also am also curious, like when you approach these different parties, like you said, you surround yourself with people, right? This is kind of a little bit of a more business conversation here. How do you make sure that you're not, taken for granted, or that you get the fair share of the pie? How do you negotiate those kind of terms in terms of, and because you're doing so many things at once, right?
Well, I mean, it's a. I think you'll. It all depends, right? I mean, in certain it's I mean there's so many deals. I mean there's so many deals you do. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, right? And you basically, yeah, you stick with the good ones, and you get rid of the bad ones, right? It's like that. That's pretty much how it is, right? And even now, I mean, okay, now we're doing Super League, and in the beginning we did certain deals. Yeah, I believed we were undervaluing our proposition, right? But yeah, we needed to do the deal to get the next one in, right? Um, and yeah, I mean, a simple thing is, for example, our journey towards with event locations, right? Now we have great events in Malibu, London, Munich, right, Singapore, right? But you don't start there. You start with smaller events, and you start slowly building it up. And yeah, was I happy with the beginning? No, I wasn't. But okay, that's the best deal I could get at the time, right? So yeah, let's work with that. Um, let's yeah, and then jump to the next one. I mean, actually, the perfect example is in COVID we delivered this new concept called the Arena Games Triathlon, right? And I needed to get it off the ground, right? So and to deliver this, we needed a metaverse, right? We don't have a metaverse. Building a metaverse, I mean, I've never built a metaverse, right? So again, what do I need to do? I need to partner up with an existing metaverse, right? So you look around, and okay, in cycling and running, there's a couple of metaverses. There's Be Cool, there's Ruby, there's RGT, there's Zwift, right? Zwift obviously being the biggest one, right? It's okay. Let's go to Zwift. Mildly not interesting. So then I knew somebody who knew somebody, got another audience with Zwift, right? Because the first one basically went south, right? Got another audience through another channel, go to Zwift again, a little bit more interested, but like, okay, we've heard it now, it registered, but not necessarily very interesting, right? Okay, no problem. Still not giving up. Go to the next one, right? Start talking to all the other ones. Basically, I had all the other ones also lined up, right? Made the best deal possible with the other ones, and then somehow made sure that Zwift understood that this plan was going ahead. Zwift came back. Okay, we want to do it. Did I get the deal that I wanted? I didn't get the deal that I wanted, right? This third time through, but I got a deal now. Now, the first two times I didn't get a deal. Third time I got a deal. So then I said, no problem. We'll deliver a great event. After the event, I said, okay, we'll do a deal for one event, right? And I'm thinking, oh, I'll show you what we can do, right? Then I'll come back and I'll negotiate and we'll go up, right? And that's basically, and now we're in the third deal now, right? And this is all in 1.5 years. We're now in the third deal, and now we sit at a nice level playing field, right? And now we sit in what I believe is a great partnership. But yeah, it takes time, and you need to be patient, and you need to prove your concept, and you need to make sure that your concept is actually as good as you believe it is, right? uh, Deliver it, stick with it, and then yeah, renegotiate and just say, look, the value is here. I mean, we had the value. There's agencies, recognized agencies who calculate value, right? So there's ways to prove black on white by independent agencies what the value is of things, right? So yeah, and just take no offense in it, and just continue to chip away, chip away, and do more and better. Yeah.
I think that's a good example. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that switch from challenge to the team in Bahrain to Super League? Because you kind of explained the different connects, right? And then so then
Yeah.
how did Super League end up becoming Super League? And is Super League coming to Taiwan too then?
Well, I'm working on that actually. You're joking, but I'm actually working on
Are you
that,
okay? Okay.
and there is an opportunity, I believe. Maybe not
Great.
in 2022, but 2020. We're looking at 2022 is already done. It's already planned, right? So now we're looking at 2023, and there might be a good opportunity in 2023. But I mean, it still needs a bit of work as always, right? But I would love to go back to Taiwan. I think that would be fantastic. I think yeah, we have an event in Singapore. If we can add Taiwan to it, and then maybe something down under, that would kind of for Super League be an ideal kind of Asian footprint, right? So that
Yeah.
would be fun. That would be my dream scenario, and working on it.
That would be very exciting. Yeah, so would you say that challenge, the Bahrain team and Super League, like what are some of the differences between the three? What did
But I
you
think
learn from the previous ones to apply to the current ones, and what's changing, and how has the industry changed as well, or the
yeah,
sport?
I think the to answer your first question, right? I think in retrospect, what has changed is how does it all fit together? I think for me, I feel like okay, Super League. I mean, it's more. It becomes more and more of something that I really like, right? Because yeah, I mean, Challenge Taiwan was a great experience, but I mean, yeah, and it's a very engaged community, but it's a small footprint, right? And I'm yeah, I like international, right? So. And with Challenge Family, I explored the opportunity to become Challenge Asia, etc. But yeah, again, I thought the deal wasn't right. It didn't really fit, right? So um, Bahrain was able to open up a more international footprint, international scope, right? But it's a team, right? So it's not necessarily a scalable business as such, right? It's a team. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I was looking for that more scalable business, and I think then when I came across my business partner and co-founder, who had the financial means and the passion to do something, we came out with a very simple vision, right? So triathlon is a participation sport now, right? We were both inspired to become triathletes by a professional individual, right? But the professional element of the sport was non-existing before Super League, right? Or well, exists but was not showcases. Ironman venture capitalists behind Ironman basically decided, okay, although historically you had all these superheroes, they decided, okay, let's fully go on mass participation because that's where the money is. That's how the valuation goes up, right? So let's focus on that and less to do with the pros, right? Um, the ITU has done great things for the sport, but it's never really developed as a real media product, right? It's a federation. They are more about integrating the sport and spreading it through federation structures than really developing a media property. So we believe that, okay, here's an opportunity to to make triathlon a spectator sport, a media product, away from a participation sport, and obviously, and then we then redevelop the formats to do that, right? So coming back to your question, so for me, that basically that satisfied much more of my kind of aspirations because it was international, it was entrepreneurial, it is scalable, right? And it's a real business, right? So ultimately, I think the growth process through these different steps ultimately leads to this now, right? And now this also I'd like to see grow, but it's again it's that's the entrepreneurial spirit. And now we have a global platform, and we're in sports, right? So that's I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time, and I know there's still a lot of things we could cover. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask if, oh, actually, I have two things I want to ask. One is throughout this whole time, right? You know, your ups and downs and et cetera, et cetera. Were there any, individuals or any, books or things that really kept you motivated and going, to like pick up and say, okay, another day, like here, we're gonna make this work. We're gonna be patient about the deals. We're gonna, find a different partner, et cetera, et cetera. Because I mean, not for everyone, but usually, people do have a person or books or something that keeps them going, right? Or maybe it's your habits or your routine. It's always like, I had a bad day, I'm going to go out for a really long run now, I'm going to get on my bike and go for a really long bike ride. Whatever gets you in your zen moment of
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, ultimately, yeah, um, yeah, I think my inspiration has always been my grandmother, right? She's passed away now, but she made me believe that I can do whatever I want to do, right? She made me believe that, and she always empowered me. So that's always been my inspiration, right? And if and there's many shit days as an entrepreneur. There's almost more shit days than good days, but the good days are stronger than the shit days, right? So, but yeah, whatever the shit day came, I just kind of circled back to that, right? And thought about uh, just believe that I can do it, right? And then I think, and obviously, what always inspired me is the people on the journey, right? I ran into, let's say, Mac. I ran into to Leonid, my current business partner in Super League. I ran into the whole team that works with Super League, and they're all inspirations by themselves, right? So, and I think that's where I get my self motivation from the education what I got to my grandmother, and then working with all the people around me and surrounding you with the people that help you drive forward, right? And that basically, yeah, always, yeah, wants to that drive me always to do more or wanting to do more, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I always remember you talking about your late grandmother. What was it you used to say? She's in her 90s and she's still riding her bike to town.
Yeah. No, she was an inspiration. She was always optimistic, always driving forward. Whatever happened, she was always happy, right? And always and whatever I did, she always believed that and for not only for me but for so many people that they can conquer the world, right? And believed in that, right? And was committed to it, right? So yeah, I mean, I remember us being on a trip somewhere, and we wanted to. We said, okay, we're hungry. We sit down, and the kitchen was closed, right? She ran into the kitchen and talked to the chef, and they made us something, right? Because she was so determined, and yeah, this little old lady going there and just making it happen, right? And that's been a strong motivation to just whatever, don't take no for an answer, just make it happen. And then she always used to say, you have a no, but you can only ask, and maybe you'll get a yes, right? So there's just always ask, right? So
I'm sure you're passing her wisdom down to your sons.
yes, trying to,
Trying to. Okay, and
yeah.
so my last question, which is one I usually ask everyone who comes on as a guest, is what advice or your wise words would you tell people listening to this episode and really resonate with your story? Yeah, what would Michael's 2 cent be?
Well, I mean, if you really, I mean, look, okay, if you really want to do something different, right, then there is no time as today to start it, right? And just and just chip away at little things. Don't wait around for the stars to align and to everything be perfect, right? Just start with little things just come from A to B to C to D. Don't expect you don't need the stars to align to be able to straight go to Z. Just do the little things and work on it hard, right? Work on it hard, and surround yourself with the right people, right? And then yeah,
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for your time and
pleasure, pleasure.
all the best with your 2022 calendar of events.
Thank you,
Well,
thank you.
we'll speak soon. And I will include all your links so people can look up Super League, have a follow, and reach out to you if they, I don't know, maybe some partnership or something down the line.
Fantastic, fantastic. No, no. I mean, I would be fantastic to make it back to Taiwan with a Super League event, right? That would be fantastic.
I think we'll be
Hopefully,
looking forward to having you back here.
I hear that. I mean, actually, coincidentally, still people in Taiwan reach out and I mean, and regarding Super League, and say, oh, is there a chance, etc., etc. So I still see that the community is very vibrant and very passionate about it. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So maybe we'll see you here.
Indeed, indeed, we will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.